back. So I didn't schedule this one because, to be honest, I think I prefer it if I just sort of, out of almost a compulsion, decide to do these. I want to feel, moved to do it. So, and not that I haven't been, but when you schedule something, there's a lot of suspense that happens in the hours and minutes just before you actually then go on to speak. And I tend to work best when unscheduled, as some people have learned that the hard way, in the nicest possible sense of the word. If I just sort of appear and then start talking, usually I catch myself off guard, and somehow that's even better. So yes, here I am, and I felt compelled to talk tonight because basically, over the last month or so, I'm from South Africa. It's and it's a place I dearly love. I love the people. I just love everything about it. I live in Australia now, so yes, it's no longer my primary home, but it always has a very special place in my heart. And this pandemic has been, so I've been keeping a little bit of an eye on what's going on over there. And, they've got a very severe lockdown, which I think is easing slightly. But I think what really happened is over the last couple of days, the last little while, there's been, hi, Uncle Charlie. I've got tea tonight. I haven't even got wine. It's herbal tea. It's very good for you. Am I getting distracted? So, it's been like really challenging there. And you hear these sad stories, like they sound tragic, of people like really struggling to eat. I mean, people are really locked up, and it's, obviously, I think the point is, I live in Australia, a first world country. South Africa is a developing country. There's an enormous amount of poverty there, and to try and have that situation under lockdown is obviously extremely challenging, and it has been surprising how I don't know how well it's worked, but what compelled me to talk tonight was there was an article published in the Daily Maverick, and hi Victoria, I'm gonna just point that out to you, because when I saw that I thought, okay, now I've got to actually say something, because it's at a point where this is published in the Daily Maverick, and this is the title: South Africa, not South Australia, and South Africa's COVID-19 response is hurting other health priorities. All right, and now what struck me, and I do want to thank my brother-in-law for posting this, is the authors: Linda Gale Becker, Valerie Mizrahi, and Tobeko Ntuzi, Tom Moultrie. Some names I'm familiar with, and some I'm extraordinarily familiar with. And that's really what compelled me to talk, because one of the names there is my previous boss, Professor Valerie Mizrahi, who now is the head of at UCT, University of Cape Town, the infectious disease, I'll probably get the name a little bit wrong, but the Institute for Infectious Disease, a very prominent institute in South Africa. She was my supervisor for my PhD, and someone I have and still have a huge amount of respect for, on every level. Her humanity, and as well as her scientific credentials and abilities, was a real privilege to work for her. But there's a few very prominent names on that list, and so this group of scientists felt compelled to write something, and not, there's a lot of science happening now. Most of it gets put in a preprint form to go to scientific journals. These scientists have decided to go to the media, right? This is, and I think what's driven that is a sense of urgency, because every hour, every day that the lockdown continues in a place like South Africa, which is very different. And look, we're not in as severe a lockdown here in Australia by any stretch of the imagination. they have quite a severe lockdown, and any additional time spent in the lockdown has huge downstream consequences, potential downstream consequences. And the point they make in this article is a very powerful point. Basically, what's starting to happen in South Africa is children, which hasn't happened for a long time. South Africa, with all its trouble, has made tremendous progress in terms of lifting people. I'm not on top of the politics at the moment, sadly, but malnutrition is not anything like it was, say, a couple of decades ago. But small children are now starting to be brought into the clinics and hospitals with malnutrition. The real problem, and this is from what I understand from reading this, is that a place like South Africa, very different from the US, very different from Australia again, has ongoing challenges with communicable diseases, right? So diseases, good morning, Susan, nice to see you. So ongoing challenges with communicable diseases, right? It's tuberculosis and HIV are huge problems in developing countries, many developing countries. My PhD research and some of my post-PhD work was all on mycobacteria, so trying to find ways of dealing with the scourge of tuberculosis. So it's a huge problem there, very different to here. So every year and ongoing, there's a baseline, right, of a burden, a TB and an HIV burden, and in the poor communities, essentially, right? So it's constant. It runs pretty constant, and I'm just gonna turn this around because I want to just I found if I say this, if I do this in a graphical way, if I just try and draw a bit of a graph, so let me just get down on my knees and bear with me. We're going to do some very this illustrates the point. Okay, so can you see my axis here? All right, there's my x-axis over there, which is, I guess, time, right? Don't worry too much about that. And this is the numbers, right? The amount of people affected, affected, all right? Now, every year, TB is pretty constant, right? From year to year to year, and over about 3 or 4 years, right? TB is a pretty constant burden, and we can lump TB and HIV in there, all right? I'm just using these two examples. It's an article worth reading. Maybe I'll try and put a link to it they do talk about additional things, but I thought this really illustrates it well. So TB and HIV, a constant burden, right? The mortality of that, and I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but I think it's in the area of, and they're scary numbers. God, I'm worried. I'm now worried. I don't want to put a number here, but it's in the, it's a huge burden, a huge mortality burden, a massive toll of morbidity and mortality on the country, right? Now you get this new pandemic. Now this is the key. It's changing, right? It's a new thing. So it's adding to the health burden. Now, just to say, the lockdown did help with that. It did ease that initial, peak. So it wasn't like that. It was more like that, and allowed the health system to kind of deal with the situation a bit, right? But this is the real issue. So during the time of the lockdown, because now the health care people in lockdown, they can't go and get their TB drugs. They can't go and do the things they should be doing with, getting medication and getting treatment. The WHO is predicting that there's going to be a massive increase over the next few years in TB and HIV-related mortality. So what's really happening is, as this COVID is now prevailing in the community, this graph here is now suddenly doing that. Okay, it's suddenly now the angle of, don't worry about the angle of trajectory. I'm just saying it's increasing, whereas it used to be a constant burden. But the burden of now these other communicable diseases is suddenly growing because these people are not getting access to what they need to get access to. And that is a real issue. Okay, so that's really this is the point I wanted to make. So as COVID is being managed, there's a spike in other things which were, to some extent, under control. That's the real tragedy, and that's why this is going to outpace COVID, right? COVID, you'll get tens of thousands of deaths predictably. But now this new kind of increase in TB and HIV-related pathologies is probably going to make COVID look quite acceptable. And that's a tragic thing to say. So, what these people are, what these very eminent scientists are saying is that we're now in the next phase of the disease in South Africa, right? The lockdown slowed down the growth of the curve, but what it probably didn't do, because they didn't really, the testing was always an issue, right? The rate of testing probably wasn't significant enough, okay? And as a result of that, just want to quickly read this comment, because there's a friend of mine in Johannesburg. Yes, Steve, I'm putting out all these media releases to go collect your medication. It's a healthcare drama. All right, so you're seeing this in the general population. Accessing medication is a drama. All right. So the lockdown, although effective at helping the healthcare system get online, because of the lack of testing, probably didn't produce the kind of intervention that one would have hoped for. And there's another really interesting. Oh God, I'm not going to remember. He's a professor from Wits, the University of Witwatersrand, Professor Shamir Bada, I think. Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. Somebody correct me if you don't mind. So, basically saying that if you don't test enough, you're not going to really manage the community spread after the outbreak, right? That's really what you're hoping for, is to get a handle on who's infected so that when you lift the lockdown, people can start to, you can contact trace. That seems to be what's happening in Australia at the moment, and hopefully that will, will continue in the positive trajectory. But in South Africa, there probably has not been significant enough testing. So the bottom line is there's community spread. The virus is probably going to spread in the community, and you'd expect it to. It's an epidemic. It's not just going to go away anywhere in the world. But you'll probably have slightly less of a handle, and it's going to cause trouble. It's an epidemic. It's going to, but what they are saying, this group of scientists, and what they're pleading for, I think, is that it needs to be integrated. This epidemic needs to be integrated into the general healthcare system, because they can't stay in lockdown. The costs, that's not even the economic costs, all right? But the health burden, and this is where they can speak to, right? Is going to be significant in those other communicable disease areas. And I am seeing other reports from very eminent people in the business world, consulting world, saying the same thing. For the economic hit is just too much for the country to bear. So it's so the big picture, the big take-home message is every country is different. Every country has unique circumstances, unique populations, unique epidemiological concerns and things that have to be factored in. One shoe does not fit all is the take-home message. So, I'm very grateful. Such a pithy little word. I don't know what pithy means, but I think it's a very brave step that this group of scientists took to make a public statement like this, because scientists don't like to stick their necks out unless they've tested something, published something, talked about it. But this group of scientists has felt compelled to do so, and I think it's amazing to see scientists stepping forward into that cultural space that scientists need to inhabit. All right, scientists need, and this is what's fascinating about this epidemic is how it's bringing scientists out and showing a very human side to what they are. And I think that could be one of the things that comes out of this is that humans get a human face. Matt Broom, it means concise and to the point. We talk about the word pithy now, right? I've moved on from that word, Matt. The word in the context in which I used it can have whatever meaning it likes. But yeah, thank you. It means concise and to the point. That's not something I'm very often. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. And yeah, it's nice to see you all. And if you've got any questions around that, or any comments, or any some numbers for me, that would be useful. You can pop them in the comments later on, or even now. I could sit here really quietly, staring at the screen, waiting for a comment. Well, that's not only about my grammar. But yeah, so lots of strength to you all, and it's good to see you. So take care of yourselves. Bye bye.